It's up, it's good. Today I'm bringing you my week 14 kicker rankings, and we are one of the only channels giving you guys kicker rankings. So make sure you hit that like and subscribe button as we are on the way to 3,000 subscribers, trying to help you guys get an advantage in the last week of the regular season before we get into the fantasy football playoffs. And I need to make an apology. I did not have Jason Meyers high enough this last week, and Jason Meyers absolutely went off. So I will own my wrongs. I will say that I was wrong. But we get back after this week with the rankings, and we started off in the S tier, and I have three main kickers this week. It's going to be Brandon Aubrey, it's going to be Jason Meyers, and it's going to be Tyler Loop. When we started off, Brandon Aubrey, right now, implied team total is 27.5. Dallas continues to move the ball up and down the field. Even if they do get stopped against this Lions defense, it is going to be an indoor matchup. So Brandon Aubrey, you're going to have to like the accuracy. You're going to have to like how far you could kick the ball. Brandon Aubrey should be the number one kicker this week in fantasy football. Now we move on to kicker number 2, and it's going to be Jason Meyers, who comes off an absolute fabulous day versus the Minnesota Vikings, and they're going up against the Falcons. Like we said, this is going to be indoors, another great matchup for a great kicker, and that's what we like to see. We like to target some of these kickers, especially when they are going up in an indoor matchup, when they are, of course, at the Atlanta Falcons Stadium. And so for me, Jason Meyers, I think that Atlanta Falcons should get enough stops that Jason Meyers should at least get somewhere around 2 to 3 field goals and, of course, whatever touchdowns they score, which could put him easily in that double-digit kicker fantasy point total, which is what we're looking for and what we kind of can project here in the S tier. Move on to kicker number 3. It's going to be Tyler Loop for the Baltimore Ravens going up against the Pittsburgh Steelers. And the thing that we have to kind of talk about with Tyler Loop is the fact that the Pittsburgh Steelers, how efficient is this offense going to be? We talked about this in the defensive rankings video, where Tyler Loop overall, he's looked pretty good. He's looked pretty good the last few weeks. And when you look at kind of ECR right now, Tyler Loop is a top 4 kicker heading into this matchup. But I do really like Tyler Loop in this game. Definitely like him versus Pittsburgh. Even though it was a down day versus Cincinnati, we are going to go back to the well with Tyler Loop because we do know he has the leg to hit it from any distance, and he has been pretty accurate so far this season. The only thing is, can he get the attempts? Because he didn't have any field goal attempts in this matchup versus Cincinnati, which we're hoping he can get some of those attempts heading forward. But we move on to the A tier, and this is where we kind of talk about it, and we're like, hey, these are the good guys, but they don't necessarily have the same amount of upside as I feel like those top 3 guys. Number 4 is going to be Jake Bates. Again, another indoor matchup. Detroit Lions. Can this Dallas Cowboys team, which has been very stout up front, the trade that they made for both Kenny Clark and Quentin Williams have looked and seemingly is paying off for Jerry Jones. That is something to be seen if the Cowboys can stop Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. But Jake Bates should be good. Indoor matchup, like we said, with the crazy weather that we're seeing outside, just getting a kicker in an indoor matchup seems to be pretty safe. And so for me, with the implied team total being 23 points, I like this for Jake Bates versus the Cowboys. Now, kicker number 5 is going to be the kicker, Harrison Mevis. Now, I need to make a big shout out to Harrison Mevis, as for the Rams, this guy, I was in his local hometown when he was coming up. I lived in Warsaw, Indiana. He was a kicker for Warsaw High School, then goes to Missouri, and seemingly has fought his way on after a few seasons to be the kicker for the Rams, where they literally just cut Josh Carty and they said, hey, the kicker Mevis, it is your time to shine. And boy, has he shined. And in this matchup versus Cardinals, this is a great matchup for Harrison Mevis. And I'm leaning all in. Like we said, it's at Arizona, so this is going to be a good weather matchup. We have to like it. And if you're looking at his overall game log so far, it was not a great week 13 finish where he did only finish as the kicker number 23. But when it is a good scoring game, he's finished as kicker 12, 27, 4, and 23 on the season. So you got to feel really good about Harrison Mevis. I like this matchup versus the Cardinals. I think it's a get-back-right game for the Rams. So I'm projecting good things for the Rams defense, and I am projecting good things for Harrison Mevis as my kicker number 5. And my kicker number 6 is going to be Chris Boswell versus the Bills. Mr. Boswell, nothing but consistent. But the reason Chris Boswell, he is an S-tier kicker rest of the season, this Aaron Rodgers injury, I'm a little bit worried about the way that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to be able to move the ball versus the Buffalo Bills. And just based on that, has Chris Boswell down here as kicker number 6. I'd love to push him a little bit higher. I'd love for us to say, hey, Mason Rudolph, it's going to get them into field goal opportunities, and then Chris Boswell's able to kick it. But for me, like I said, I think it's just going to be a grindy game, and I'm just a little bit worried about Mason Rudolph as a whole. My kicker number 7 is going to be Cammy Fairbairn. Mr. Cammy did not have the greatest performance in week 13, but again, the reason that I've told you, hey, we need to be targeting Cammy is because he is one of these kickers that is home, that is indoors. With this weather, you have to be considerate. Now, this is one of the last matchups where he will be outdoors in the fantasy football playoffs. So it's not a great matchup versus Kansas City, and that is why I have him a little bit lower. I don't have him as an S-tier kicker, but I do think he has been super consistent, and I do think the Houston Texans will get stopped enough in some high kicking opportunities for Cammy. Hopefully, he just makes his kicks, and he has, 3 30-yarders and a field goal, and we can get him kind of over double digits, but that's kind of what I'm currently projecting him as he is going up, of course, against the Kansas City Chiefs this week for the Houston Texans. So I like it. But we'll have to kind of see how this plays out for Cammy with the implied team total and everything like that. Now, we move it on to the B tier, and this is a little bit lower. So my kicker number 8 is going to be Will Lutz. They are going up against the Denver Broncos are going up against the Raiders, and this is a great matchup for Will Lutz as he's going up against the Raiders. The only thing is I think there's going to be a lot more touchdowns because of the way that the Raiders defense has been playing as of late, but they did show a lot of resilience in this last week's game. And so there's a potential that they stop the Denver Broncos, as Bo Nix also hasn't been playing the best football, and that he's definitely startable. And it's at the Raiders. It's an indoor stadium. We got to like that for Will Lutz. My kicker number 9 is going to be Dicker, the kicker, as the Chargers, of course, are taking on the good old Philadelphia Eagles. Now, the thing that we have to consider with the Philadelphia Eagles in this matchup, again, we're hoping and praying that the Chargers can move the ball. But even if they can, I do think that puts Dicker, the kicker, in a favorable matchup versus the Philadelphia Eagles. My kicker number 10, it's going to be Matt Prater as the Buffalo Bills are going up against Cincinnati. Again, what are the odds that the Buffalo Bills just kind of continue to struggle to move the ball? The implied team total is 20 points. We got to like this right now for Matt Prater. Again, weather could be a factor, and that's why I have him and Evan McPherson kind of back-to-back. I do think both these teams are going to be going down. This could turn into a shootout with Joey B back, with Jamar Chase, with Josh Allen, back and forth. I also don't trust the Cincinnati defense whatsoever, so I do think as long as the Cincinnati Bengals can move the ball against the Buffalo Bills, it should be a high-scoring game, and that's kind of all you can ask for these back-end kickers in the top 12. Kicker number 12 is going to be Cam Little versus Indianapolis. It's a no game. Cam Little has a big leg. You got to like it. Like ECR-wise, if we're looking at it, we're a little bit behind consensus. Cam Little is a little bit ahead currently at this current moment, but we just need to continue to kind of just have Cam Little here just because we know the ultimate level high-end upside that Cam Little can provide onto your fantasy football team. Now, some back-end guys, like we said, if you guys are absolutely needing and struggling, kicker number 13 for me is going to be Riley Patterson as he's going up against the Jets. Decent matchup. We saw Riley, like we said, with the Miami Dolphins in the defensive rankings video. There's some things that could happen where the Jets could potentially really make this a game. There's also potential that Miami just blows the Jets out. So Riley Patterson just a little bit lower. I would say these guys are really risky streamers if you need them. Harrison Butker versus the Texans. It's really not a good matchup at all for the Kansas City Chiefs offense with the way that the Texans defense has been playing, but you can never bet against Patrick Mahomes. And now that they kind of are like fighting, they're fighting for their playoff lives, which it's going to be weird if we don't see the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs. But I do think it's super risky for Harrison Butker at number 14. And then my kicker number 15 is going to be Chase McLaughlin versus the Saints. I wish, Chase McLaughlin kind of popped off there for a little bit of time where we had Chase McLaughlin pretty high on our rankings, like each and every week. We were talking about Chase McLaughlin in that kicker number 2 to kicker number 5 kind of scenario. And when we're looking at what he just did, was kicker 6 versus the Arizona Cardinals going up against New Orleans. It's been, pretty vital when we're talking about his overall consistency and his overall kicking. There's some things that could happen where they just score a ton of touchdowns and get up. I just think there's a decent floor for Chase McLaughlin. There's just not really the ceiling that I'm looking for. But if you like fantasy football, if you like winning, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. We're trying to provide you kicker rankings. We're trying to provide you defensive rankings. We're trying to answer your start sit questions. So if you have any start sit questions, make sure you let me know down below, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks so much. Bye.